It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome to the show, sponsored by Fish Fighter Products, Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Alaska, the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce in Oregon, and McCombie's Custom Lures. Who is going to help us kick things off today by doing another salmon lure giveaway? This week, we're giving away a 3-pack of number 7 Mag Willow UV salmon spinners from McCombie's Custom Lures. These big spinners are high quality. They are made in the USA. They've got painted blades. They've got hoochies too. They're the perfect spinner to use in Oregon's Tillamook Bay for Chinook this fall, and in lots of other different places for salmon too. Whether you're fishing in San Francisco Bay, in Southeast Alaska, or the Great Lakes, this 3-pack is worth about $25. And if you want a chance to be the lucky person that we'll be giving them to this week, here's what you do. Go to our Facebook page. You'll find it at America Outdoors Radio. Step 1, like and follow our page. Step 2, go to the post where we're doing this giveaway and just tell us where you're tuning in from, your city, your state, and maybe even your radio station. If you don't do Facebook, don't worry. Just go to our website. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com, and just go to the Contact Us page. Give us the same information. One lucky person who does this is going to win these spinners and is going to be in a very good position to reel in some salmon this fall. Turning our attention to this week's show, we'll be telling you about some other fishing lures you'll want to try out too. They're made by Odin Lures, a new company out of New Hampshire, and they're not just lures, they're a system that will help you catch more fish, whether you're after largemouth, pike, striped bass, snook, or lots of other predatory species. Dove and grouse season is happening throughout much of the country this month, and we thought it would be a great idea to check in with Hank Shaw, that well-known outdoor chef, about how to cook some of those birds. In addition to recipe ideas, Hank's going to tell you about some chances to see him in the Pacific Northwest in the weeks ahead as he promotes his new book, Pheasant, Quail, Cottontail. I've got a copy, and it's great. What goes well with wild game birds? A nice glass of wine, of course, and a good red wine also goes well with venison. And with that in mind, we'll be talking to Colin Kearns. He's the editor-in-chief of Field and Stream magazine, and he's got an article in this month's edition about deer and wine. It's called A Vintage Buck, and it's all about his hunt for black-tailed deer in a California vineyard. One more hunt to tell you about is an antelope hunt. Outdoors writer Troy Rodakowski will join us to tell you about the pronghorn his father bagged on day 6 of a long hunt in the desert of Southeast Oregon with a muzzleloader, no less. Take it all together, and we've got a great show coming your way. So, without further ado, let's introduce you to our first guest. Next on America Outdoors Radio, we're going to start off talking to Bob Sutherland. He is the president of Odin Lures, a new lure company based in Hudson, New Hampshire. Bob, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, John.
So, Bob, you have developed and you sent me a whole bunch of high quality, made in the USA, topwater poppers. They range in size from 1/2 ounce to 2.5 ounces, and I can see you could definitely use them to catch all sorts of freshwater and saltwater species. But not only are these good-looking, well-made poppers with some really strong, high-quality hooks, but there's a real twist to these. Why don't you explain to our listeners the twist that you've put into these poppers?
All right, well, what we've done is, through the years, chumming was a technique for attracting fish. So the reason I developed this bait well that's in the front of the lure is so that instead of just dispersing the chum and not having it where you want it, these lures are capable with the bait well of receiving scent. So that, let's say the scent or the chum comes directly out of the lure while you fish it. Fish tails up to the lure, maybe the chum or the scent is enough to entice the fish to strike.
Well, I really like this because it combines sight in terms of the colors of the lure, the sound in terms of the displacement, and the walk the dog retrieve you're doing with the popper itself, and like you said, the scent to attract these fish. And you've developed a whole line of scents, so we're going to talk about in just a second. But before we get there, before we talk about the scents that you inject into the poppers, then ooze out of the laceration portion of the poppers, what kind of fish have these lures caught so far?
On the saltwater, I'm here in the Northeast, and because they're relatively new, we've had tremendous luck with striped bass, bluefish. There's some people down in FLA who are starting to show up with some tarpon, snook, redfish, and then that's on the saltwater end. On the freshwater end, largemouth bass, pike, pickerel, smallmouth bass, any top-feeding fish will be attracted to the, like you say, the sound or the popper. If you're a top water guy, that's going to attract them. So any fish that feeds on the top is what we're having tremendous luck catching.
I don't know about you, Bob, but to me, fishing topwater lures is one of the most enjoyable ways to fish because you just see that fish rocket out of the water, smack that popper, and the fight is on. And the hardest part for me is always setting the hook too soon before they've actually got the popper in their mouths. But, it's just a blast to fish topwater and to go ahead and perfect this like you have, again, combining not just sight and sound like a traditional popper, but adding the scent trail to it. I absolutely love it. So let's talk about the scent trail. Let's talk about what you call your fish smack attractant. And it's not just one scent fits all. You've got all sorts of different fish smack scents for different species, don't you?
Yes, sir. And actually, we've teamed up with BioEdge. And BioEdge is a leader in fish scent manufacturing. He has 35 different flavors. And for the same reason that we have the same different flavors, John, it's that you want to try to match the hatch. So if shiner is the predominant species in the body of water, you would elect to use a shiner smack. And if it was smelt, again, it leads to matching the hatch. So with BioEdge, their process of making their oils, their potions, it's done through a cold process. So the oils aren't cooked away, the amino acids and all. So the fish smack that we have, John, is 100% pure fish oil, and it has not been cooked away. So it's very potent. And back to what you asked, all the different flavors are to match the hatch. Heron were running up at the Northeast for the striped bass. So with a heron-colored plug with heron smack in it, it was on. And then when the mackerel showed up, we then turned to a mackerel-colored lure with the mackerel scent. And so when your area, whether you're down in Florida or wherever you may fish, whatever the predominant species that the fish are feeding on, this is what we're going to try to have available for you.
Well, we are running out of time, but two things I want you to know, folks that are listening today. Number one, we're going to give away some of these lures. We've got half-ounce poppers and 1.5-ounce poppers, basically a saltwater set and a freshwater set. We've got Fish Smack too, and we're going to give it away next weekend on the show, so you'll want to be tuning in for that. But before we do that, I want to let people know where they can find out more about these lures and where they can buy them.
So you go to odinlures.com, ODINLURES.com. We have a complete line of them available. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and we love to hear from all of you. We do regular giveaways on Facebook, and we're trying to spread the word. The main reason, John, that I developed in was, well, I wanted one because I, like you, love top water plugging. And to have a fish follow the plug to the boat and then he tails off, why didn't he take it? Because it didn't smell like something he wanted to eat. Now with the fish smack in it, you're more apt to have him take it because he's convinced now it's something that he should eat. And that's why I did it, Brother John.
I absolutely love it, Bob. The website again, odinlures.com. That's O-D-I-N. That's right, very Norse-like. odinlures.com. Check out these poppers. Check out the Fish Smack Attracted. It's a system that I think is going to work really well. Bob, thanks for telling us about this today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you.
Trolling for big salmon? Then tie on a spoon or spinner from McCombie's Custom Lures. These high-quality, made-in-the-USA lures help you catch more Chinook and coho. Whether you troll an Elite Series spoon, a Champion Glow spoon with a squid skirt, or a 3.5 Mini Colorado spinner, you'll be increasing your chances for a fish on. Look for McCombie's Custom Lures at Sportsman's Warehouse and other quality sporting goods stores on the West Coast and Alaska, or online at McCombie'sCustomLures.com.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products were designed for you. We make products for the relentless fishermen who know that big fish are caught by those who put in the work. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, you'll spend more time chasing the fish, not your gear. Designed and built right here in the USA, Fish Fighter products won't let you down. Gear up at fishfighterproducts.com.
Next on America Outdoors Radio, we are talking to one of the finest wild game chefs in America. His name is Hank Shaw. He hails from California. He's the author of several books, to include his latest one, Pheasant, Quail, Cottontail, that is available on Amazon.com and bookstores and lots of other places too. Hank, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
So, Hank, I wanted to talk a little bit about upland birds today, and that is something that you talk about in Pheasant, Quail, Cottontail, not just those three particular birds and game animals, but lots of other ones. And in particular, it being grouse season, I need some help because I still am haunted by a spruce grouse I shot 15 years ago, and when I ate it, I felt like Ewell Gibbons eating a pine tree. That's about how it tasted. How do I make a grouse taste good?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different kinds of grouse. So one of your issues is that you kind of shot one of the lesser grouse for the table. I mean, I like spruce grouse though, but I specifically only hunt spruce grouse very early in the season, like around now.
Right.
Because now they're not going to taste like a pine tree because they have a much more varied diet before the snow flies. So if you get to them before it gets actually cold and it gets actually snowy, that's when spruce grouse earn their name. They switch to pretty much just eating spruce needles and pine needles, and they do get that kind of very strong flavor that at its worst can be turpentine. But in the early season, that bird is much, much, much better. But your best bet is really to maybe shoot one or two of the spruces because they're kind of there, but really go after the blue grouse and the ruffed grouse.
Thank you for that advice. It's nice to know it's not just me, that it's the bird in general. Let's talk about ruffed grouse, because even they have kind of a gamey taste for a lot of us. You know, what do you do to break that down and make it not just palatable, but a good-tasting meal?
Well, I think there's two things to go with blues and ruffed grouse, in that most of us who hunt them, that I know, really, that taste is what we're going after. Because basically, at its core, these forest chickens are basically chickens. You know, they're light meat. If you take the skin off them, they're kind of like a boring chicken. It's that skin and the fat that they have underneath the skin that gives them that flavor that it's a pronounced flavor, but a lot of us we crave it. It's this kind of funky, in a good way, kind of flavor that goes with that whole experience of chasing these birds in the mountains and the forests. And, you know, we like it, but if you don't, your best bet easily to mitigate that is to just skin the bird.
All right. That's super easy. Great advice. Let's turn our attention to dove because dove season is open as well now in September. And I know you were a judge for the World Dove Cook-Off down in Arizona last year. Unfortunately, that event is canceled for this year, but it's coming back in 2019. When it comes to a great dove recipe, you've certainly seen some good ones. What would you recommend?
Well, I think the thing that sets my dove cooking apart, now don't get me wrong, I really do like dove breasts wrapped in, bacon with a chili on it and that sort of thing. That, the venerable popper that everybody does for Labor Day.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of that dish for Labor Day is like candied yams for Thanksgiving. It's not necessarily the best way to eat a sweet potato, but it's tradition and we do it. And it's a symbol of more than just a dish. So I'm not telling you to not do that. But hopefully you get to shoot enough doves that you get to experiment a little bit more. And if you do that, I highly recommend plucking your doves and grilling them.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, for people who are sitting out there like, oh my God, how can you pluck a dove? Dude, it's super easy. They're the easiest birds that we hunt to pluck because the feathers basically fall off. It takes 90 seconds to do one once you get your groove on. And so once you do that, you've got the skin, you've got the legs, and they make unbelievable little bites that you can grill up on a high heat fire, hopefully over wood. And then, you just have at it. It's finger food in the best way.
I love talking to you, Hank. You always have these great ideas I never would have thought of otherwise. Now, we have to turn our attention to something else. We've covered grouse, we've covered dove, but now we need to talk about your book. You actually are on tour promoting pheasant, quail, cottontail, and you're going to be in the Northwest. You're going to be in Seattle, Portland, and Bend. Tell our listeners who are listening in stations in all three of those markets more about these visits.
So first off, I'm going to be in Seattle. And that's going to be on September 13th. I think that's a Thursday, and I'll be at the Filson headquarters in downtown Seattle. And that's a free book signing. You can just show up and get yourself a signed book. And I think there will be beer, so that's always a plus.
Absolutely.
We do have a book dinner on that Saturday, the 15th of September, but that is currently sold out. So Filson's where you need to see me if you're in Washington State. And then after that, I go to Bend, Oregon on the 24th of September, and that's a Monday. That's a book dinner at a great restaurant called The Drake. You knew I had to do a bird-related restaurant, right?
It goes without saying.
And so there's plenty of seats available for that one. That is Monday the 24th of September in Bend. And then the whole rest of that week, I'll be in Portland. So I'll be at the Filson store in Portland in the middle of the week. I believe that's a Wednesday. And again, that's a free event you can just come to, and I'll be doing a cooking demonstration there. And then on that Friday, I'll be at Elder Hall. And Elder Hall it's a big book party, and a bunch of us chefs are putting together small game appetizers based off of the book. And every ticket gets a signed copy of the book. And plus some of the Portland's best chefs takes on recipes from the book itself.
Wow. So for these latter two events, how do people sign up to attend?
The best way to get in a spot for the Drake is to call the Drake in Bend, Oregon. And then Elder Hall, if you look up Elder Hall on the internet, they have an events page, and then there's a sign up URL for that where you can get it. I think it's through brown paper tickets.
Well, there you go. And last but not least, if people want to follow you, what's your website and Facebook page so people can do so?
My website is Hunter Angler Gardener Cook, and I'm on Instagram at Hunt Gather Cook, and my Facebook page is also Hunt Gather Cook. So I'm very active on both Instagram and Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, but less so. And the website is kind of the core of what I do, and that's Hunter Angler Gardener Cook.
Again, folks, the book that he's promoting this time around, Pheasant, Quail, Cottontail, another home run hit by Hank Shaw. If you're into wild game cooking, you've got to pick this one up along with his two earlier books. And if you're anywhere near Bend or Seattle or Portland, go see Hank, get one of his books. If you can get in on one of these events, you aren't going to regret it. Hank, always a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to crossing paths with you again soon.
Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing you again.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offer spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products are designed and built for you right here in the USA. Fish Fighter products are used by the top fishing guides in the Northwest because they know having the right equipment is imperative to a successful fishing trip. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, Fish Fighter products makes the gear you can count on. Find out more at fishfighterproducts.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing through education and work on behalf of public lands and waters. Lend your voice to the fight today by visiting backcountryhunters.org or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We've got a very special guest for you today who's going to tell you about a very unique hunt. His name is Colin Kearns. He's the editor-in-chief of Field & Stream magazine, and he's got an article coming out in the September edition called Vintage Bucks. It's all about deer hunting in a California wine vineyard. Colin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John.
So, Colin, I've got to ask, how did you stumble on this opportunity?
Well, being the editor at Field & Stream definitely comes with its perks, and this was one of them. So I got this invitation to come out to California last year, and there's this vineyard out in Paso Robles, California, where they're basically the only vineyard that doesn't have a fence around their property. And the reason other vineyards have those fences is to keep deer out. But on this vineyard, Steinbeck Vineyard, just so happens that the family who owns it loves to hunt, and they realized that they had this heaven for deer, basically, you know, this great property, and the deer would come into the vineyards and eat the leaves and stuff like that. And so they thought, why would we leave these deer out when we could hunt them and manage them? And so they have this deal with, some friends where they invite a few hunters each year to come to the property and hunt. And last September, I was one of those lucky hunters, and it was an unforgettable hunt.
Oh, it sounds amazing. I want to dive into this a little bit more, but before we do, I guess we need to make clear, this is not a commercial outfitter or guide. I mean, this is just somebody who's inviting some friends over to take advantage of this very unique hunt.
Exactly, yeah. Unfortunately, it's not something that you can go online and book a hunt. This is just someone inviting you onto their property and taking you out for a deer hunt. So it's exclusive, and that's unfortunate because it's something that I would love for everyone to be able to experience.
So let's talk about the deer themselves. I guess we'll start off with the species. Are we talking muleys? Are we talking whitetails or Columbia blacktail?
Well, that's a good question. It's, kind of depends on who you ask. Everyone out there refers to them as blacktails, but I think technically, biologically, these are coastal mule deer. But, kind of take your pick. But, the locals all refer to them as blacktails, so that's what I refer to them in my story.
And that's how I would too. When in Rome, as they say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the quality of the hunt. Is this an any sex hunt? Or, do you have some decent bucks, knowing that, blacktails are not known for growing huge racks?
Yeah, so it was for a buck, and these deer I was surprised by how big some of the deer were. They had some pretty nice mass to their antlers. Some had really big spreads. And my guide, Ryan Newkirk, he was holding out. We only had 2 days to hunt, and we saw a ton of deer, but he wasn't going to just put me on the first buck we saw. And we did make a few stalks on some really nice bucks, but unfortunately these deer were smart, and they've you could tell they've been hunted before and had their own way of getting out of range or breaking up my shot. So the buck I ended up shooting was a nice 2x3, and the best thing about these deer is the meat. That's the real trophy. With any animal, but especially with these ones, because their diet is so unique. I mean, they're eating the grape leaves of fine wine grapes, and I've never had venison that tastes as good as the venison from the deer I shot.
Oh, sounds absolutely delicious. Now, I know you're not the kind of guy to imbibe before the hunt. I got to ask, though, after the hunt, was there a celebration with a glass or a bottle of wine? And what exactly do you pair a deer with when it comes to wine?
Well, the Steinbecks, they're a wonderful family, and they have this really neat tradition there after a hunt. Whichever section of the property where you shoot your deer, because they've got various patches of different wine grapes like Cabernet, Pinot Noir, and all sorts of other ones. And the patch of grapes where my deer died was in a Zinfandel patch. And so their tradition is after the hunt and that evening, they open up a bottle of wine made from the grapevine where your deer died. So as we were skinning my deer, Ryan's mother, she cooked the deer's liver for us, and they opened up a bottle of Steinbeck Zinfandel, and we all had a glass on the back of a pickup truck and toasted to the hunt, and it was a really neat moment. It was like I just felt like I was part of the family, and it was a great end to the trip.
This sounds like an absolutely wonderful hunt. I want to get back to an aspect of the hunt itself, though. I would imagine hunting deer in a vineyard situation, it gives you some unique challenges that you're not going to find, hunting out in the sagebrush or out in a meadow. I mean, you've got a whole bunch of obstacles in terms of the vineyards themselves. Yeah,
I mean, it's very tricky. These deer were really hard to spot. It was a mix of, we did some spot and stalk on the ground, but we also, to just cover the property more efficiently, there was a lot of driving around in the truck at, 1 mile per hour, scanning the vines and just glassing for deer. But, what they would do, they would just nestle up on the edges of these grapevines in the shade. And, the branches of the grapevines can look an awful lot like, a deer antler. And so it was really tricky to spot them. And then, when you would eventually make a stalk, the deer were really good at using the vines to their advantage. It was almost like they would just vanish into these grapevines, and you'd see them 1 second and the next they just disappeared, and you'd run across, the vines to try and see if they were in the next row, and they'd be gone. And so it was a very challenging hunt, but ultimately that's what makes it rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. I've got to ask about the family. I've got to ask about their wine label. Sounds like certainly a winemaker I'd like to support. Tell me more about them.
Yeah, so it's a family vineyard. Steinbeck is the Steinbeck Vineyard is the name of the company, and they're just very down to earth. As Ryan Newkirk, he's the grandson of the owner, Howie. He put it to me best. He's like, look, I don't get caught up in the romanticism of living and working on a vineyard. I'm a farmer. That's what I do. And, that kind of gives you a sense of how they, they're not, snobs or, they're kind of stereotypical wine connoisseurs. They're just down to earth, really hardworking people who happen to make and produce some really delicious wines. And you can order their wines on their website, and they're not the cheapest, but they're certainly, not super expensive. And I couldn't recommend it enough. They're great family and great wine.
So just Google Steinbeck wines and you're going to find it?
Yeah, you'll find it.
All right. Well, again, this sounds like a really unique hunt. I can't wait to dive into the article in the September issue of Field and Stream magazine. We got about a minute left. What else are you excited about coming up in this month's edition of Field and Stream?
Well, this was a fun issue because it's like this was, it's hunting season now. And so this issue is just packed with all sorts of stories about the fall and fall hunts. And the name of our cover story is called Opening Day in America. And it's 20 pages of hunting tips from every region of the country, the East, the South, the Midwest, and the West, for birds, big game, small game, you name it. And it's just kind of a celebration of opening day, which at Field & Stream we think of as kind of like a national holiday. There's hunting tips, but there's also essays about just the traditions of opening day, spending time outside with your friends and family. And so it's a great issue, and I'm really proud of it, and I hope you like it too.
Sounds like a can't-miss edition to me. Again, it's a September issue of Field & Stream magazine. Look for it wherever you buy magazines, at stores or anywhere else. And don't forget to read this great story called Vintage Bucks about deer hunting in a California wine vineyard. Colin, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks, John.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offer spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
This land, once wild and free, fades now from our memory. But I remember what it was like, what we were like, what we are capable of when we band together. Perhaps more than any other landscape, wetlands embody the life-giving abundance that nature has to offer. And perhaps more than any other organization, Ducks Unlimited is working to ensure that our continent's wetlands not only survive, but thrive for generations well beyond this one. These natural wonders are where waterfowl begin their cycle of life, where the deer and the antelope play, and where we, the people, gather together to see and share what makes the outdoors so great. The time is now to band together with organizations like Ducks Unlimited. The time is now to rescue our wetlands.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing through education and work on behalf of wild public lands and waters. Lend your voice to the fight by visiting www.backcountryhunters.org and join the 25,000 men and women who have pledged to defend wildlife and public access. You can also demonstrate your support by signing up for the 2019 North American Rendezvous in Boise, Idaho, May 1st to the 5th.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products were designed for you. Fish Fighter products are used by the top fishing guides in the Northwest because they know having the right equipment is imperative to a successful fishing trip. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, you'll spend more time chasing the fish, not your gear. Designed and built right here in the USA. Gear up at fishfighterproducts.com.
Trolling for big salmon? Then tie on a spoon or spinner from McCombie's Custom Lures. These high-quality, made-in-the-USA lures help you catch more Chinook and coho. Whether you troll an Elite Series spoon, a Champion Glow spoon with a squid skirt, or a 3.5 Mini Colorado spinner, you'll be increasing your chances for a fish on. Look for McCombie's Custom Lures at Sportsman's Warehouse and other quality sporting goods stores on the West Coast and Alaska, or online at McCombie'sCustomLures.com.
You're back with America Outdoors Radio, and I've got another reminder for you about that 3-pack of number 7 Mag Willow UV salmon spinners we're giving away this weekend, courtesy of McCombie's Custom Lures. As we mentioned before, these big, made-in-the-USA spinners have painted blades and hoochies and are sure to be a great lure to use, whether you're trolling in saltwater bays or big freshwater lakes for salmon. This 3-pack is worth about $25, and if you want a chance to be the lucky person that wins it, here's what you need to do. Just go to our Facebook page. You'll find it at America Outdoors Radio. Like and follow our page, then go to the post where we've got this giveaway going on, and just let us know where you're from, what city, what state, and maybe even what station you're listening to. That's all it takes to enter. If you don't do Facebook, that's okay. Give us the same information through our website at americaoutdoorsradio.com. Just go to the Contact Us page to do so. One person who does this is going to win that 3-pack of salmon spinners from McCombie's Custom Lures. Next on America Outdoors Radio, we've got another hunt to tell you about. This one is a hunt for antelope out west. The person telling the tale is outdoors writer Troy Rodakowski. Troy, welcome back to the show.
John, it's a great pleasure to be back. Thanks for having me.
So, Troy, last year we had you on the air telling us about sheep hunts and grizzly bear hunts you did up on the Yukon with your dad. This year, you went hunting with your dad for antelope. Where did this hunt take place? And why did you decide to go where you went?
So this hunt took place in Southeast Oregon, and there's several units that are available to muzzleloader hunters over a special draw here in Oregon. And I think that the choice of unit was made by my dad just because of the caliber of antelope in that particular unit. Per capita, there's not as many antelope in that area, but he wanted to actually go and try to get a nice buck. So that was his main choice behind applying for that unit.
So are we talking the area around Plush or Lakeview or close to the Heart Mountain Antelope Refuge?
Yeah, you're down in the Lakeview area, Lakeview, Silver Lake. I mean, like I said, there's the Fort Rock Silver Lake tag. There's different tags. There's probably about 10 different hunts that people can apply for. They all take place in that general vicinity.
Okay, well, let's talk about the hunt itself. I did see a great photo of your dad with the pronghorn, but how did we get from the beginning of the hunt to the end of the hunt in that great photo?
Well, Dad was over there with Gary Lewis, and Gary and Dad were hunting, and Gary ended up and shot his buck on the second day of the season. Gary stuck around and coyote hunted for a day or two, and then he left. And Dad had been, we'd obviously scouted over there several times throughout the summer, and found little water holes and seeps, and so he was hunting these different water holes, and he'd basically go after he built some blinds at these watering holes, and he'd go out there and just sit and wait, and he'd wait for animals to show up. And finally on the 6th day, he actually had a buck come within range 115 yards, and he decided, hey, that's a pretty good buck. I'm gonna take the shot, and he did, and it all worked out. So it took a lot of patience, a lot of time, a lot of baking in the sun, so to speak, to get an opportunity at that antelope.
I'll tell you what, that is a weight of almost biblical proportions. 6 days at the watering hole until a buck showed up. Was that the only buck that showed up in range during this entire time?
He had one buck on the first day that was a smaller buck come in, and, he saw a couple mule deer between then and different animals, coyotes and whatnot. But yeah, that's a long wait to have an opportunity, and that's what that hunt takes. Any hunt like that, any muzzleloader hunt or an archery hunt, you're going to have a lot of patience to find some success in that particular part of the world.
Now, in Oregon with muzzleloaders, are you hunting over open sites or are scopes allowed?
Scopes are not allowed. It's all primitive open sites. They actually implemented that you could use fiber optics for the first time this year. So some hunters are using the fiber optics, but it's all open site, primitive only. So, you're basically hunting at an intermediate range. I mean, some of the inline muzzleloaders nowadays can reach out to 115, 150 yards, but when you're shooting open sites, you're pretty much limited to your range anyway, even though your muzzleloader might be able to shoot a little bit further than that.
Right. And, I support that because it seems to me the lines are really blurring in terms of the lethality of muzzleloaders versus what used to be traditional deer rifles, especially if you put a scope on it. Gunworks just came out with a muzzleloading rifle with a scope, and they advertise a 500-yard effective range with a muzzleloader. That's unheard of.
That is unheard of. And I mean, maybe I'm stepping out of line by saying this, but it's like if you're going to have a muzzleloader that shoots 500 yards, you might as well just be hunting with a rifle. I mean, unless you feel that there's a little bit more of a challenge there with that muzzleloader, I don't know, but that's definitely unheard of. That's crazy.
Well, and I started doing some research on this, and I found out even 10 years ago, there's companies that are making muzzleloaders that, with the scope, I mean, you're absolutely right about open sights or peep sights. There's a limit to how far you're going to be effective. But with scopes, even 10 years ago, the technology was good enough that you were getting 250-yard shots. And so I guess people who are getting these muzzle loaders for these longer ranges, I can only assume that they're doing it not for the challenge of the close-range shot, but for the opportunity that's afforded you as a hunter where you can get a muzzleloader permit where you might have a little less competition and a little more chance.
Exactly. And a lot of those muzzleloader seasons actually take place during the rut and different things. And so, like you said, it's the opportunity there that is presented when you're using that muzzleloader, But kudos to the state of Oregon at actually doing a good job at trying to keep them as an intermediate range weapon. So there's still that part of the challenge there for the hunter.
All right. Well, Troy, we've got to go, but it is September. I know you're a busy writer. What articles can we look for this month and next month from you, and where are they going to appear?
We've got game bird previews in Northwest Sportsman. We've got some bird outlooks in Oregon Hunter, and we've got some waterfowl stuff coming out in Game and Fish. And so it's all about birds here in the next month or so, but I know there'll be some big game stuff in, the November, December issues of all those magazines coming up as well.
Troy Rodakowski, he's a great outdoors writer based out of the Beaver State. Check out his writings. And what's your website, Troy?
www.troyoutdoors.com, and you can look me up under Troy Rodakowski at Facebook or at Troy Outdoors on Instagram.
There you go. Troy, thanks as always for joining us on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks for having me, John.
We're running short on time, but I want to remind you about a great event taking place in the region I call home. That would be the Wenatchee Valley of north central Washington. On September 29th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., I'm going to be at the North Central Washington Gun Club in East Wenatchee with my daughter because that's a free hunting and fishing day for kids between 6 and 16. It's being put on by the Wenatchee Sportsmen's Association. The kids will get lots of goodies. They're going to learn a lot. They're going to have fun, and they'll even get the chance to shoot rifles, shotguns, and arrows in a safe environment. Again, that's the North Central Washington Hunting and Fishing Day, absolutely free for kids, September 29th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you like to listen to our show online, there's a couple places you can do that. One of them is at talkamericaradio.us. It is the new voice for conservative talk radio, and you can hear our show Saturday mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also hear our show as a podcast anytime you want on Stitcher, Podbean, or YouTube. Just look for America Outdoors Radio, and we are here at this station at this time for you every week as well. We're out of time, but I do hope that the good Lord blesses you in the days ahead. The September weather makes for a great time to be afield. Whether you're after birds, whether you're after big game, whether you're doing some late summer fishing or late summer camping, this is a month that is not to be missed when it comes to playing outside. Remember, it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Cruz through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Hurry, though. If you wait too long, the big opportunity might just get away. AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Trolling for big salmon? Then tie on a spoon or spinner from McCombie's Custom Lures. These high-quality, made-in-the-USA lures help you catch more Chinook and coho. Whether you troll an Elite Series spoon, a Champion Glow spoon with a squid skirt, or a 3.5 Mini Colorado spinner, you'll be increasing your chances for a fish on. Look for McCombie's Custom Lures at Sportsman's Warehouse and other quality sporting goods stores on the West Coast and Alaska, or online at McCombie'sCustomLures.com.